Alright, yeah! Thank God for fantasy football. I'm Buster Brown, and the show is called Redemption Rehab. Today, we're taking a look at those impact players to pick up on your waiver wire. So buckle up, get out your popcorn, and let's head over to the chalkboard
and check out the facts.
Okay, here we are taking a look at our waiver wire heading into week 11 of the NFL fantasy football season, starting with this guy, Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's the quarterback down there that got hurt in week 2. He's coming back this month, sometime maybe around Thanksgiving. They opened the 21-day window for him to start playing. I would go out, I would pick him up, put him on my bench, even if you don't need a quarterback, because the one thing you don't want to happen is somebody to use him to beat you later in the year. You need another quarterback? How about a guy we talked about last week that's put up some serious fantasy points, starting with Jacoby Brissett down there in Arizona. He's playing because of the injury to Kyler Murray. Last week, Jacoby Brissett went out and completed 22 of 44 passes for 258 yards with 2 touchdowns. This week he plays against San Francisco. They're going to be minus Marvin Harrison Jr. Had an emergency appendix surgery, so he won't be playing there. He's a quarterback you can probably go out and get. I also like these guys. Why not Marcus Mariota of the Washington Commanders? They play the Miami Dolphins. Last week, he had 16 of 22 for 213 yards with 2 touchdowns, and he ran the ball 5 times for 22 yards. And we got the rookie down there in New Orleans that we talked about in our NFL draft preview show, Tyler Show. I tell you what, he was 19 of 27 for 282 yards with 2 touchdowns, and he also ran the ball 4 times. There are some injuries at quarterback that you should know about. Davis Mills might play again for quarterback C.J. Stroud, who's suffering from a concussion. And the New York Giants have decided to go with Jameis Winston against his former team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wow, that's a revenge game. I could see Jameis Winston going in there and putting up some decent numbers against his old team. Who else do we like? How about this guy at wide receiver? Tez Johnson of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We told you to pick him up last week. He went out and had 4 catches for 42 yards with 2 touchdowns. We talked about him in our NFL draft preview show where we concentrate on rookies coming into the NFL. We do it every year. Hit that subscribe button and you'll get a chance to see other rookies starting next year. I'll tell you what, who else do we like at wide receiver? The guys we talked about several times this year. Alec Pierce of the Indianapolis Colts went out and had 4 catches for 84 yards with a touchdown on 7 targets. And Parker Washington, who's filling in for the injured Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter, he went out and had 3 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown on 7 targets. And he returned a punt for a touchdown, and he had 2 rushing attempts. So they're relying on Parker Washington to fill the hole for those injured receivers. Guys we also like that we've been talking about several times this year, hit that subscribe button. How about Christian Watson of the Green Bay Packers? Last week, he had 2 catches for 45 yards, and that doesn't seem like much, but it seems like every week you hear about a Packer wide receiver injury on offense, whether it's Tucker Kraft or some of these other wide receivers, Jalen Reed, now Romeo Doubs might be out. I could see Christian Watson having a big end to the season now that he's back healthy. Here's some wide receivers you need to keep up on your radar in case you have an injury later in the year. How about Green Bay Packers? Datavion Wicks. Last week with the injuries to all those people we talked about, he had 4 catches for 38 yards on 8 targets. We also like Luther Burden over there in Chicago with the injury to DJ Moore, who might not play this week. Luther Burden came in and had 3 catches for 51 yards on 3 targets. And you got to keep an eye on the Houston Texans rookies, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. Jaden Higgins, who had 5 catches for 42 yards with 1 touchdown on 7 targets, and his other rookie teammate, Jalen Noel, who caught 4 passes for 35 yards on 4 targets. These are 2 other guys we talked about in our NFL draft preview show. Hit that subscribe button. We'll make sure you get to see those shows next year. I mean, if you want to win championships in fantasy football, knowing who's coming in the league every year is key. Hey, you need some running backs? We got some for you. How about this guy? We told you last week to get Trey Benson. He's coming off IR for the Arizona Cardinals. We like him. We think he's going to finish the season strong. Right now, they're using people like Bam Knight and Amari DiMarcardo as a committee to make up Trey Benson's numbers that he'll get when he comes back. Who else do we like at running back? Hey, here's a guy you need to know about. How about Sean Tucker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? He's filling in for an injured Bucky Irving and a Rashad White, who's the starter. Sean Tucker came in last week. He had 9 carries for 53 yards and 1 reception. We really like him. We also like Jeremy McNichols over in Washington. There was another injury to Chris Rodriguez last week. He's questionable. Last week, Jeremy McNichols came in and had 5 carries for 25 yards, and he managed to catch a ball for 4 yards. We also like Keaton Mitchell as the handcuff to Derrick Henry, and we also like the handcuff to Alvin Kamara, Devin Neal. Another guy that got hurt, another veteran, J.K. Dobbins. Who's his replacement right now? It's R.J. Harvey, a rookie we talked about in our NFL draft preview show. They also got Tyler Batty and Jaleel McLaughlin. Who's it going to be that steps up? It's probably going to be R.J. Harvey. Handcuffs are important because if the starter gets hurt, you already have the backup. Who else do we like? Maybe you need yourself some tight ends. I'll tell you what, we've been talking about some of these guys that are still available on waiver wires for weeks. How about Cade Otton? He was 9 of 82 last week on 12 targets. How about Theo Johnson of the New York Giants? He's owned in 50% of fantasy football leagues. He went out and had 7 catches for 95 yards on 8 targets. Now, they do have some quarterback issues there. We also have been telling you about Harold Fannin Jr. for Cleveland. For weeks, he had 4 catches for 47 yards on 7 targets. And we've been telling you about Dalton Schultz for weeks now. He had 7 catches last week for 53 yards and a touchdown on 11 targets. We also like Luke Musgrave, who we told you about last week for the Green Bay Packers. He's only owned in 20% of fantasy football leagues. He had 3 catches for 23 yards on 3 targets. And if you want yourself some sleeper picks, we got those 2. How about Jatavian Sanders down there in Carolina? He had 5 catches last week for 32 yards on 5 targets. And you got to understand about the Rams tight end situation. They're throwing the ball to their tight ends. They have Tyler Higbee, who's the starter. The backups are Colby Parkinson and Terrence Ferguson. They have had 8 catches just last week on 12 targets as a total combination. One of those guys is probably going to have a breakout year, so keep those guys on your radar. Who else do we like? Well, I'll tell you what, man. You need yourself a kicker. How about going out and get this guy, Cam Little, who kicked a 68-yard record field goal 2 weeks ago. Last week, he had 3 field goals. And we like Harrison Buckner of the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of times when a team like Kansas City is on bye, they have to cut their kicker because they don't have a roster spot for an extra kicker. Maybe Harrison Buckner is on your waiver wire. I'd go out and get him. Hey, you need a defense? Why not pick up the San Francisco 49ers if they're on your waiver wire? This week, they play the Arizona Cardinals, then they play the Carolina Panthers, and then the Cleveland Browns. I tell you what, that's it for the weekly waiver wire report heading into week 11 of the NFL season. I'm Buster Brown. The show is called Redemption Rehab. Good luck.